People pleasers, this one's for you. What's up, my Valentines? Welcome to or back to my channel. Today we're talking about how to say no and not feel bad. Because take it from a fellow people pleaser, that life is not fun. It makes no sense and it's actually really unhealthy. There is a big difference between being compassionate and helping people in need and just being a people pleaser. And it's equally as unpleasant and also doesn't make sense to say no but then to feel bad about it the whole time. So here are my tips for how to say no and not feel bad. Stay tuned. Before we hop in, it's really important to understand why we end up as people pleasers, some of us. Most likely did stem from childhood somewhere. Somebody when we were growing up taught us that when we say no, someone's not going to like us, that we have to always strive to make others feel okay, and if others aren't okay then we can't be okay. Just wanted to make that clear. Now, how do we start to say no and not feel bad? Tip number one is to stop assuming that the other person will even be upset. A lot of the time as a people pleaser, when someone asks something of you and you want to say no, we start to make up this worst case scenario in our head about how upset the person's going to be if we say no. And I've experienced this, and a lot of the times when I do actually say no, the person's reaction really surprises me, and it's like, oh, they're not even mad, let alone, you know, giving me crazy backlash. And it's just something that we build up. Again, it stems from childhood. Something must have happened somewhere. I know what it was for me, where, you know, when you said no and did what you wanted to do, somebody got mad at you or made you feel like you was a bad child for doing what you wanted to do or for saying no. So stop assuming that the other person's going to be upset. Yes, sometimes the person will be upset, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, if you want to say no, don't assume they're going to be upset. Just say no. My second tip is to realize that you are not responsible for other people, namely for other people's emotional response to you saying no. So your responsibility is to judge the situation. When someone asks something of you, it's your responsibility to use your judgment and decide whether or not you can, and if you want to, and if you will do this thing. And it's your responsibility to maybe say no with tact, you know, and to not be hurtful about it. That's it. That's where your responsibility ends. How the other person perceives your no, how the other person emotionally reacts to you saying no, that's not your responsibility. You cannot help that. You cannot force them to see it in a certain way. That's not up to you. And I think when you realize that, it takes a lot of the pressure off of you. You don't have to be responsible for somebody else feeling okay, for somebody else feeling happy with you. All you can do is say yes or no, and then the rest is up to them. Tip number 3 is to recognize that you are actually more useful to people when your cup is full. It's a massive cliche, but it's so true. You can't pour from an empty cup. If you are depleting yourself by constantly saying yes to everyone, this is what happens. You basically start to give 2% of yourself to all the people around you and maybe 2% to yourself. What is that? You've basically diluted your energy and you're giving little drips and drabs to anybody who asks for it, let alone the rest of the world. You've got nothing to offer anybody else by the time you've given 2% to everybody and 2% to yourself. It doesn't make sense. You need to fill your cup and then give to others from the overflow of that cup. And then what happens? That flow then extends to the rest of the world, and you end up being of a lot more use to people, your immediate close people, and beyond that, you know, the rest of society, when your cup is full. You need to be whole before you start giving out pieces of yourself. And tip number 4 is to trust your judgment. And what I mean by that is you know the difference. You know the difference between when you're saying no because you need to put yourself first because you really can't do this thing, and when you're just being selfish. You know that. So you don't need to worry about what someone else is going to think, if someone else is going to call you selfish, if somebody else is going to judge you, because you know. Use your own judgment and trust your own judgment. And of course, you know, if you realize actually this thing is really no skin off my nose, I'm just being selfish, then maybe go ahead and help. But if you decide to yourself, no, I can't do this thing, no, I will not do this thing, and it's not just because I'm being lazy and selfish, it's because doing this thing is just going to deplete me too much, it's going to take away my focus from what I'm doing, whatever. That's it. That's your judgment. Trust it and stick to it, and don't worry about what other people think. You know, compassion is an amazing trait, and I'm full of it, and I think most humans are full of compassion. It's our natural way of being. I'm not encouraging mindless selfishness and just, you know, being greedy and selfish and just being self-centered and narcissistic and all of that. These are two very different things, please understand. What I'm talking about is learning to say no to things that are going to deplete you.